Prepare and lead your rehearsals extremely well.
Okay.
Prepare and lead your rehearsals well. So you better be the most prepared person at your rehearsal.
If you're the leader.
If you're the leader.
Okay.
Yeah, you better show up knowing
What if you're not the leader?
Don't show prepared at all.
Don't even show up.
Don't even show up. Why? Why are you going?
You're not the leader.
You're not the leader. Still be prepared.
Yeah.
Still do the best you can with what you have. But I think if you're inviting people to that space as a leader, you're saying, man, we want to be excellent, and you're not.
Yeah, you got to show.
Got to.
Speed of the leader, speed of the team.
That's right.
Welcome back to the Worship Catalyst podcast. I'm Austin Ryan, co-founder and director of Worship Catalyst and the host of the podcast here. We're almost halfway through this series called Digging Deep, What Worship Leaders Need to Learn from Seminary. Our guest for this series is Stephen Hanley. He's just finished a seminary degree on worship ministry, and we're picking his brain to learn which of the things he learned are the most important and practical in his day-to-day leadership. In today's episode, we're going to talk about building an excellent worship ministry. This is from a class he took called Leading Ensembles.
Exciting. Everybody got really fired up.
Is that a French word, ensemble?
It's got to be.
It's something like that.
Yeah, that's it. It's true.
So when I think of ensembles, I think about when I was in high school, like church choir, and we had a little breakout group of like 8 of us,
The ensemble.
and we were the ensemble.
Did you have a name, like a special name, like
Joy Sound.
Sun Seekers?
That would be a good one.
Yeah.
There's lots of really
Joyce
good
and Jubilee.
names. There was the big choir was called Joint Airs.
Come on.
The little one was Joy Sound. And I think that if you go younger, like the middle school group was something even smaller. And then the children's choir was called the Cherubs.
Yeah. Is that real?
I think so. Like
Man, that's fantastic.
A little bitty, like kindergarten.
And that's what we're talking about today.
We're talking about children's choir?
That's it. No, we are talking about ensembles.
So,
Yeah.
since I have a wrong impression of ensemble, I hope, or this is going to be a terrible podcast.
You do a little bit.
What are we talking about in your class you took on leading?
Yeah, I think that's
ensembles?
exactly. Yeah, ensembles. I think you're spot on when people hear that word. That's what I thought too when I saw the class. But essentially, we're talking about.
You were super stoked about it, though.
Fired up.
Were you thinking it was boy bands?
I was hoping it was boy bands.
Like it was going to be just like a study of NSYNC? And
yeah, Backstreet Boys.
Maybe Do
the
Kids.
Christian one would be like. I don't know, a Christian.
Is
boy.
there?
There's got to be one.
Is there a Christian?
There was
boy
one
band?
that I grew up listening
Wait,
to.
Nicole,
because I had
she's
to.
a boy band person. Is there a Christian boy band?
Is it like Point of Grace?
Point of Grace.
That's a girl band.
Is it?
Yeah,
Say this for the blooper reel. Welcome.
girl band.
Girl band.
Point of Grace.
All ensembles. When we're talking about ensembles in this class specifically, we're referring to pretty much any like segment of your worship ministry. So
Right.
singers, that could be a choir, band. You could even start talking a little bit about your tech team if you really wanted to get a little bit segmented that way. But essentially, like different segments of your worship team.
All right, so we want to have some really practical ways here, extremely practical
Yeah.
ways, 8 of
Extreme.
them, to have excellent ensembles, but we'll just say excellent worship ministry or excellent worship groups, okay?
Yeah, that's good.
So that we don't have to say ensemble 400,000 more times.
I love it.
Okay, cool.
Thank you
So
for
what's the first really extremely practical great thing?
It's really practical.
Okay.
Is have clear expectations
Yeah.
/ a clear audition process.
Okay, cool.
So I think you have to build that in, meaning that you have, hey, this is what we're looking for, kind of just general expectations of a person serving on this team, both
Right.
ability and character and all that.
Yeah.
And then have a audition process.
How long
of
is
some sort.
how long is your expectation list?
Pages? No, I think it's pretty simple.
It's like about a 47-page book.
Yeah. It's just sort of that 3,000 page book on Revelation that you
That
talked
same
about.
one?
That book on, yeah.
So you got NASA to write it for you?
Yeah. AI writes a lot of things.
And
now,
yeah,
so
that's true.
I asked AI to write me
It's
a 3,000.
NASA.ai.
That's NASA.ai. That's a website. Yeah, so I think it's pretty short. There's like a little blurb that we have for each type of person. So like, somebody in the band, what we're
Right.
asking them to do on their instrument.
Sure.
There's just some general like character guidelines that we have.
Okay.
And again, we don't really like just have those like stapled to a wall. Everybody's a little different
like
how
the
they handle
theses.
that. But we do have something that we hand and say, hey, this is what we expect of you.
So audition process, there's people all over the map on this because some churches or leaders are like, if people want to serve, they can serve.
Mm-hmm.
And others are like pretty strict, and especially it seems like the bigger the church, the better you got to be, kind of thing.
Yeah,
so
yeah,
there's
for
like
sure.
a higher bar. Mm-hmm. So what does a healthy audition process need to look like?
Yeah, I think a couple of things that and we've kind of, and it's personally, we bounce around on this, but I would say just generally speaking, you probably have like, it's not just you. You're not the only person involved in that.
Sure.
Meaning,
you don't want to be the bad guy.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Correct. So you bring some other leaders on your team that are part of that.
Yeah.
I think you give really clear instructions on what you're looking for. So like, here's a song. We'd love for you to learn it.
Right.
Hey, bring a song that you're comfortable with. Maybe having a balance of that. You're not just gassing them to learn.
So there's love in saying no also.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
Because they're trying to help people find the ministry that God's actually called them to.
Yeah.
And if they can't sing,
right,
you probably didn't call them to be a worship leader.
Yeah. And I think too, even before you get to the actual audition process, it's probably good to have like a healthy kind of on-ramp where you kind of see a desire and faithfulness. I've noticed that a lot of people, not always musicians, but there's a lot of people that are really quick to want to sing. And as some worship leaders are probably amening, a lot of people are quick to say, hey, I sing, so let me be on the team. I want to be, and I think that's not a bad desire. But if they just showed up at your church last week and this week they're like, hey, I want to sing, maybe you have like a process that you say, all right, well, we're doing this in a couple months, hey, come to a couple band rehearsals. There's something to see some faithfulness in them before you just hear how they sing. You're like, we got to get them on the team. You know what I mean? Because that probably won't end super well.
All right. So the first thing in terms of the 8 practical ways of having a really great worship ministry, and I'm going to quit using the word excellent because excellent is confusing to people. Because we're not talking about quality on excellent. We're talking about doing the best you can with what you have. It's spiritual, 100%. It's work, it's effort, not quality.
Not quality, right.
So let's talk about a high-quality worship ministry.
Love it.
So the first one is clear expectations and audition process. What's the second one?
Yeah, so we want to invest in our singers.
Yeah,
so invest in your singers specifically. So a lot of us are really good at, we're maybe more band-driven guys. A lot of worship leaders love, playing guitar, playing keys, and they're really good at talking to a band. Not a lot are good at communicating with singers. I'm not the best at communicating with singers.
Right.
So I think you have to look at how am I going to pour into my singers by getting them good resources and training, maybe inviting someone on your team that might have some gifts in that space. If you don't have those gifts naturally, like talking to singers, helping them understand harmony and role, and that you begin to kind of bring someone up into that role that they're kind of going to be the person really that's leading your singers, leading. And I think you always need to speak into that, but it doesn't necessarily have to mean that you're the one always over that kind of thing. But I think, teaching good vocal techniques, either by help, you or a video, something that is helping them get better. That's really the idea. We want to help them get better.
There's a couple of really good websites for that.
Totally, yeah.
Okay, cool. And maybe harmonies as well, like helping the team be together on harmonies and learn those and things like that.
Yeah, for sure. And resourcing them in the right way to help them prepare.
Love that. So good. Okay, cool. What's the third extremely practical way to have a high quality worship ministry?
A lot of people might get a little frustrated with this. We have not, gotten to this place in our church where we ask the question, consider a choir. Consider it.
A choir?
A choir.
What's the fourth one? I'm just kidding.
Consider a choir again.
Yeah, twice.
Yeah, you just twice.
And if you said no the first time, consider it a second time.
That's right.
So,
That's
okay, choir. I love this. It's funny, choirs through the years, have really been this pendulum swing. And so what's the reason to consider a choir?
A really practical reason is it gives more opportunity for people to serve in worship.
But the bad
ministry.
singers.
That's right.
Is that what you're saying?
That's throw the not as talented singers in that. No, I think that.
And everybody knows that.
Yeah. So they look at a choir and
they go, those are the ones that
couldn't make with the microphone.
So seriously.
Yeah.
Other than that.
Yeah.
What's a good reason to have a choir?
I think maybe even bigger than that is it provides a new level of kind of energy and engagement.
Right.
Right. So I think when you see other people on the platform, other than the point worship leaders that are also engaging in worship, they're like making eye contact with people in the congregation. They're inviting them into this kind of expression. Man, there's a lot of power in that. And so I would say that even more than giving opportunity for people to step in and serve in worship ministry that may not ever really be on a microphone, it brings a whole level of energy to your church. So I would really consider doing
What do you think is too small of a choir?
Too small? I think you could get away with 7 or 8 people. You know, if you have 3 people, then it kind of becomes like background singer look, which might be okay. But I think I don't think there's a number.
You know, we were singing. We were in Philippines earlier this year or last year, and we were, doing a tour kind of around from city to city, doing some worship concerts and stuff like that. And we had these singers that were like a choir, and I thought we had like 12, but we never knew who was going to show up. And so there were nights there were 3 or 4.
Yeah.
And there were nights there were 6. The most we probably ever had was 6 or 7.
Yeah.
But every now and then they were like way back behind me, usually on the platform with some microphones and stuff like, choir mics. And every now and then I would look back and I was just like so drawn to worship God by watching them.
Yeah.
I just wanted to stare at them.
Yeah.
And so when I wasn't singing, I would like sometimes play my guitar and go walk around them.
Yeah.
Just to feel how much life and worship that they were helping, put off for the room. You know?
Yeah, and I think there's all kind of things that are just really positive about that. We miss a lot about seeing each other worship. A lot of time we're thinking about like our own like kind of, we've got our eyes closed and we're kind of in our little worship bubble and the lights are low. But I think we miss a lot of powerful encouragement by not looking at each other when we're singing, and the choir just kind of forces you to do that.
Yeah,
because the second you open your eyes, you see people singing. Yeah, other than people on a microphone, which I think can be a really engaging thing.
Yeah.
For sure.
All right, cool. All right, so consider
a choir.
A choir.
You may not be there, and that's okay.
Okay, what's the fourth extremely practical thing to have a great worship ministry?
Prepare and lead your rehearsals extremely well. Okay. Prepare and lead your rehearsals well. So you better be the most prepared person at your rehearsal.
If you're the leader.
Okay. Yeah, you better show up knowing
what if you're not the leader?
Don't show up prepared at all.
Don't even show up.
Don't even show up. Why? Why are you going?
You're not the leader.
You're not the leader. Still be prepared. Yeah. Still do the best you can with what you have. But I think if you're inviting people to that space as a leader, you're saying, man, we want to be excellent, and you're not.
Yeah, you got to show.
Got to.
Speed of the leader, speed of the team.
That's right. That's right. So you have to, if some people just naturally, can learn chords really simply, but if you need to spend extra time, take time to not be always just fumbling around with music chords and things like that as you're leading a rehearsal, because it's really tough for you to lead your team through a song that you don't know well.
So I'm thinking about a worship leader that's not full time, that's in their job, they get paid nothing, maybe even they're just like doing just doing this out of the goodness of their heart.
Yeah.
How do they know if they're prepared or not?
Yeah, I think there's some wisdom in understanding your boundaries and limits. So like not looking at the full-time guy and being discouraged by that. Well, it's like, I can't do that, so why even try?
Yeah.
I think, man, do what you can that's in a healthy, thing. And there's plenty, there's so many resources out there now that are just incredibly helpful.
Right.
You being prepared might mean that you're just listening to the songs a couple more times. Like if that's what you got, then that's what you got, and you lead the best you can from that place.
Yeah.
But I think more often than not, we lean probably the other way. Like we lean probably maybe more lazy, because a lot of the chords and a lot of the music and worship is super simple.
Yeah.
So it's really easy for some of us to just show up and be like, well, I can look at a chord chart. And I think we need to stray away from that. But we also need to understand boundaries and limits. And if you're just, getting paid nothing and you're volunteer, but you're the leader, like, man, you do what you can, and people see that.
I didn't grow up playing in bands or anything like that. I didn't grow up playing instruments or anything. So when it was time for me to be the leader of a church worship band, I really didn't, I knew a lot about music because I was like a music theory, music history major in college and stuff. So I knew that, but I didn't know necessarily how to put a band together. So I literally would listen to every single song 10 or 15 times, and I would write down notes to tell everybody, like, oh, the acoustic player does this, the electric does this, the drums do something like ba-dum, 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 I didn't know what any of that,
And the drummer knew exactly what you were talking
about. He did. He was like, oh, yeah, I can play ba-dum, 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 ba-dum. I got you.
Love drummers.
So I think the thing about being prepared is at whatever level you are, be more prepared than everybody else. I think that might be the thing.
Yeah.
Be as prepared as you possibly can be, and be more prepared than everybody else.
Yeah.
And be so prepared that if you're an instrumentalist, that you're or a singer, that you're not staring at your music during practice.
Yeah.
Because you got to be able to listen and pay attention to the rest of the people.
And that's part. It's not so much as, it is a stewardship thing, but I think there's incredible practical things there. That's just like, man, it's really tough for you to listen and know, your band and your singers, if you're worried about missing a cue, and it doesn't mean you're not going to mess up and you're going to be perfect every time. There might be weeks that are harder than others to prepare. And that's okay. There's a lot of grace there. But I think generally, man, if you're showing up prepared and ready as the leader, your team will want to do that as well. So there's a lot of bleed over that's just really healthy.
All right, so we're leading teams. We're halfway there. We got 4 of them. We got 4 more. What is the next? What is number 5? Extremely practical way for us to have a great worship ministry.
Yeah, we talked a lot about this in the last couple of podcasts, but have a strong vision for discipleship. I would even say / create a discipleship culture.
Okay.
So you're pouring into your team in a lot of different avenues, right? So like kind of 30,000 foot view, talking about the songs we're singing. There's clear, vision that you're casting.
I think that funnel you built for us in one of the previous episodes is a really good way to kind of go back and review, because it starts with discipling the congregation and all the way down to discipling that one person.
That's it. And so you have to think about where you sit in all those places, really important. And I think just taking time to develop that.
Okay, cool, man. I love that. Number 6.
Know your limitations and invest accordingly.
Mm-hmm.
So know your limitations and invest accordingly. So you need to be investing in yourself.
Yeah.
Your band, your singers, right? Both financially, both with discipleship type, direction and material, to, like looking at the needs of, your drummer showed up the last few weeks with broken drumsticks and he's been playing them flipped over, and it's like, let me go buy the guy some drumsticks. Thinking about those things.
Yeah.
To investing in your time, showing up to their kids' ball games. All of that. Like, you just want to be investing into the band and looking to make sure you're being poured into as well, into your own life. Going to conferences, learning new things for yourself. You always want to be growing is kind of the point, and you want to be helping your team grow. So make sure you're investing in yourself and your band.
So this seems really important, I think, to me, that we would be investing in ourselves also. Mm-hmm. And maybe good leaders don't think about that very much. Maybe they kind of think about, hey, I need to lead other people. I need to care for other people. I need to buy the drumsticks. I need to sacrifice. I need to show up early. I need to be prepared. Mm-hmm. And the next thing you know, you can't do anything because you're paralyzed.
Yeah.
From caring for everybody else and not yourself. So maybe as we think about that, like what are some things that maybe you learned in all of this to take care of yourself? What does that look like, or what could that look like?
Yeah. Yeah. The first statement there is like, know your limitations. Mm-hmm. So you have to be able to look inward and see where are my weak spots? Where can I grow? Where do I need to grow? Because some of your weak spots you don't need to put time in. I think Craig Rochelle on one of his leadership podcasts talked about there's some weaknesses that you have that you don't need to spend. You don't need to be a jack of all trades, but you need to specialize.
Yep.
But if in your specialty there's weaknesses, think about how you can realize what those are and find the right resources. If that's like speaking from stage, then find people that are really good at speaking in public and ask them to give you feedback. Yeah. Watch some courses online. Yeah. To all kind of different avenues you can take.
What I want to say also to leaders, especially, not even especially, but all worship leaders, is to think about, like Paul said, I gave them the gospel and myself. Okay, so Paul was constantly pouring himself out. He would call it as a drink offering for everyone. You know what I mean? But at the same time, we have to make sure that we're not dying in the process. And so I think your limitation thing just makes me think it's not only a tactical limitation, but it's like this physical, mental, emotional, spiritual limitation of, at some point, I'm going to burn out.
That's right.
And so I've got to create healthy rhythms.
Got to.
In coordination with the pastor and the team, just let everybody know, hey, there are days I'm not going to be here, weeks I'm not going to be here.
It's really good, man.
And I'm going to take steps back here and there as I need to. And
that's exactly right.
And so maybe that's part of this. Maybe that's part of building a healthy team too.
Yeah. And you definitely have to see areas where you might be running way too hard. That's not sustainable. Yeah. We want to be in ministry a long time. And
one of the things that I've learned recently, because we're, doing more international travel, and I went into a trip a year or two ago where I was just spent going into an international trip. I had been running, and I ran to the airport and I went overseas, and I was like, it took me half the trip to get to a place where I felt like I was in a good place to be able to serve in the best of me. And during that time, I was reading one of the 4 billion Billy Graham biographies. And one thing they said about him was that when he would go to a crusade, he would spend weeks leading up to that crusade, weeks preparing his mind, his body, his spirit. He would hike, solitude.
So good.
Just like preach to the birds,
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just out there. And then when he came back, he would find some time to rest, because he knew if he was going to be the best that he could be for the people that needed him the most, he had to take care of himself. And so I think that's put a new pattern for us when we do more traveling.
I love that, man. That's such a good word.
Yeah. So what's the next one?
The 7th one is don't forget the sound guy or girl.
Okay,
Don't forget the production team.
Right.
It's so easy for that to be put on the back burner. But I think you need to invest in those people. And a lot of people might hear that and be like, all right, well, we need to make sure that we're getting them new equipment and new gear. And that's kind of not, that's maybe a little bit of it. But I think the biggest part is like, are you spending time investing in them as well?
Yeah.
Do you have an investment strategy, a growth plan for them? Meaning, man, what do you need to do to help them take that next step in their role, and how are you encouraging them? How are you helping them build the team? But it's so easy that we kind of just forget about that, and we just let it be. And then we're mad and frustrated that our sound isn't, excellent, and our cues aren't synced up, and there's just so many things that can cause distractions,
right?
Because we haven't spent the time in investing training, but also like in the relationships with the production team and the band, and is there unity and all that we're working together on. And so I think you have to make sure that you don't forget them. And I would even take a step further, not just don't forget them, but like prioritize it.
Yeah, I think it's a really good thing that you guys learned that in a seminary class.
Yeah.
Like that's a really cool thing. We did a training on this recently, and I think a couple of things that came out of that was, number one, whoever the main worship ministry leader for the church and whoever the main tech leader for the church is need to be almost best friends.
Yeah.
That really helps because there's already this built-in tension between the stage and the back of the room, or front of the house. And so to be best friends. And the other thing that came out of it that was that we've seen a time or two through the years is when you have a musician from the stage, like an instrumentalist or a singer, who's also a rotational sound person or tech person, then there's a lot more because that person can kind of live in both worlds and create unity in both worlds. So even if they're not great at it, it's good probably to find somebody that's a rotational instrumentalist to go be a rotational tech person as well.
That's right. Yeah. Just like your own little band secret agent into the
something like that.
Yeah.
Or your own tech secret agent
that's right.
into the band, one or the other.
That's it.
Either way. All right, cool.
I love that.
Hey man, that's 7 of the amazingly important, effective, simple, practical things to do.
Yeah.
I forgot all my adjectives, but anyway, what's the last one?
Last one is protect what God is building, but don't limit what God is building.
Oh, okay.
So I know that's kind of like a play on words, but you want to protect what God is building. So the people that He's brought to your team, the culture that you've been able to create by the vision that He's given you through the pastor, through what the church is, all of that. You want to protect it, meaning that you're not just going to loosely change things.
Yeah.
You're not going to loosely just let anybody on. There's going to be boundaries that you protect what God is doing. But also, you're not going to be so rigid on the way that you do things that you're not open to what the Lord might want to do.
Yeah, right.
So that the Lord might be bringing someone on your team to challenge you a little bit, to help grow you, or to bring some circumstances to your team or your church that might change the way that you guys lead and have led, or lead you to mission, all of those things. So you want to have a good sense of boundaries around your team, but not so like walled up that you're insensitive to what the Lord might want to do this Sunday or next year or the years after that. So you want to have a good balance of that.
I love that, man. That's good stuff. All right. That's a good seminary class.
Come on.
I actually like that one, like one of the favorites so far.
Boom.
Way to go, man.
Come on, man.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of the Worship Catalyst podcast. You're now officially halfway through a seminary degree. Good job. Keep it up. In 2 weeks, we will be back and we'll be turning a little more personal and public at the same time. We'll be discussing how worship leaders are evangelists. What are the reasons that we must prioritize evangelism, and what are the reasons that a healthy team must prioritize evangelism. I think we're going to get a lot out of that one. So you're going to be here?
I think so.
You better be, because you're the pro here.
I will be here.
You are the professional leader.
Locked in, says the degree.
Degree plan. All right, see you next time.
Thanks, man.
It was +1. +1 is the Christian boy band.
Oh, +1, that's it. That's exactly what I was thinking. +1. Come on now.